Welcome to Galactic Nova Stories, where cosmic emotions come to life. Your journey begins now. Aiden's boots crunched over jagged metal fragments as he crept deeper into the Starliner's ruined corridor. The air was thick with the smell of burnt circuitry, scorched plastic, and something faintly sweet and sharp that he couldn't quite place. It made his throat tighten. His visor's HUD sputtered static in one corner, warning of structural instability, but he dismissed it with a blink. He had a feeling he didn't have much time. Up ahead, a faint, flickering light caught his eye. Soft, violet, almost pulsing like a heartbeat. He followed it, heart pounding harder with every step until he saw her. Seraph lay among the wreckage, half buried beneath a crumpled support beam, her wings limp and broken-looking, scattered with glowing dust. She wasn't like any of the alien races he'd encountered before. She was something rarer, something almost ethereal. Aiden dropped to one knee beside her, the broken floor biting into the plating of his suit. His hands trembled as he brushed debris off her chest, revealing torn armor and a deep wound oozing iridescent blood that shimmered under the failing lights. His stomach twisted. "Hold on, just hold on," he whispered, reaching for his medkit. She stirred, her breath a faint hitch in the stillness, and then her eyes opened, silver, liquid-like, filled with confusion, pain, and something else. Fear. Human. Why? The voice slipped into his mind, delicate, questioning, barely there. Aiden jerked in surprise. Telepathy. He'd read about it in debriefs. Rare, dangerous, misunderstood. But there was nothing threatening in the soft way. Her voice brushed against his thoughts. He tried to steady his breathing, seeing how she flinched when he moved too quickly. So he slowed everything. His gestures, his voice, his heart. "No one deserves to be left like this," he said, voice low and steady. He tore a strip of fabric from his undershirt and pressed it gently against her side, hating how she winced. At the pressure, another groan rumbled through the wreckage. Dust cascaded from the ceiling. Aiden instinctively shielded her with his body. Seraph's hand twitched at her side, struggling to move. Slowly, carefully, she reached out. Her fingers brushed the back of his glove. A jolt shot through him, not of pain, but of raw feeling. Her skin was impossibly soft, cool and light, and her hand lingered there like she didn't want to lose contact. "Easy," he murmured, setting the medkit down and placing his free hand gently over hers. Her fingers curled weakly into his palm. "You are strange," she thought into him, the words fragile, almost shy. Aiden let out a breathless laugh. "I get that a lot." He cast a glance down the ruined corridor. "And lucky for you, I'm stubborn too." She blinked slowly, confusion giving way to something like amusement. It barely touched her lips, but brightened her tired eyes. The ship groaned again, louder this time, metal shearing somewhere deeper inside. They didn't have much time. "Can you move?" he asked urgently. She hesitated. Her wings trembled. Then, wincing, she tried to lift herself. Aiden moved instantly, catching her before she could fall. She was lighter than he expected, almost weightless, but her breathing hitched sharply at the effort. Okay, not like that," he said quickly, adjusting his hold. He slipped his arm around her back and under her knees, cradling her against him. "We'll do this my way." Seraph didn't resist. She closed her eyes and let herself be carried, her slender fingers knotting into the fabric of his jacket, like a drowning soul clinging to a lifeline. Aiden could feel the heat of her wound against his side, could hear the way her breathing hitched and faltered. Every step he took was careful, deliberate, balancing speed with keeping her stable. The hallway stretched ahead, twisted and broken. Pipes hissed, sparks fell like dying stars. Somewhere deep in the wreckage, something heavy shifted. With a terrible grating sound, Aiden's mind raced. The evac pods were supposed to be on the lower deck, but this ship looked ready to collapse in on itself at any moment. "I need you to stay awake, okay?" he said, glancing down at her. Her eyelids fluttered. Tired, she thought, her voice thin, and cracking in his mind. "I know, just a little longer." He swallowed, feeling the weight of her trust press heavier than her body ever could. "Talk to me. Tell me your name." She hesitated. Then a name echoed in his mind. Not a sound, but a feeling like the warmth of stars against cold skin. Seraph. He smiled, tightening his grip. Seraph. That's beautiful. She opened her eyes again, barely, but there was a flicker of pride there. Aiden moved through the dark corridor, dodging collapsed beams, stepping over shattered panels. His legs burned, his lungs strained against the recycled oxygen, but he didn't dare slow down. Almost there, he muttered, though he wasn't sure if he was lying. You just focus on staying with me. Seraph's head rested against his shoulder now, her breathing shallow but steady. You are not like the others, she whispered into his mind, the thought soft as drifting ash. Aiden swallowed the lump in his throat. He didn't know what had happened to her before this crash, but he could hear the weight behind her words, the betrayal, the loneliness. I guess I never learned how to be like them, he said with a rough chuckle. Maybe that's a good thing. The wreck shuddered violently, almost throwing him off his feet. Aiden caught himself against the wall, gritting his teeth. From somewhere above, a siren blared, a long, mournful sound that meant imminent collapse. They were running out of time. Still, when he looked down at her, he saw something he hadn't seen in himself for a long time. Hope. You're not alone anymore, Seraph, he said. Not while I'm breathing. She stirred faintly, a soft hum vibrating through him, a tiny glowing thread from her broken wing wrapped briefly around his arm, like a promise she didn't have words for. And Aiden, feeling that fragile light tether them together, knew he would fight hell itself to keep it alive. Every great bond starts with a single moment of courage. Galactic Nova Stories is just beginning, and your support matters. If you love emotional sci-fi tales, forbidden connections, and stories that stay with you, hit subscribe. It's free, and it helps us bring more stories from the stars to you. The metal beneath his feet shuddered again. He tightened his grip on Seraph, feeling the future teetering at the edge of the unknown. Step by step, heart beating hard against her, Aiden carried her forward, through ruin, through darkness, into something neither of them yet understood, into a beginning. The emergency hatch groaned as Aiden shoved his shoulder into it, his muscles straining. The metal resisted for a heart-stopping second, then gave way with a screech that rang through the dead corridors. Cool, sharp night air rushed in, cutting through the stale heat of the ship. Beyond the hatch lay the shattered remains of the Starliner's outer decks, scattered across a barren planet, under a sky streaked with violet moons and swirling ash clouds. Aiden stumbled out onto the deck, Seraph still cradled against him. You're doing good, he muttered, feeling her shiver against his chest. We're almost safe, I swear it. Her eyes opened briefly, the silver in them dulled but still watching him, still trusting him. The ground underfoot was treacherous, littered with twisted wreckage and blackened sand. Aiden carefully picked his way across, keeping Seraph close, shielding her as best he could. In the distance, the remains of the escape pod station gleamed faintly under the twin moons. Some of the pods were intact. He just had to reach them. You see that? He said, nudging her gently with his chin. That's our way out, just a little farther. Seraph stirred, her fingers clenching weakly in the fabric of his jacket. Danger, her voice whispered through his mind, faint but urgent. He froze. His eyes scanned the wreckage, heart hammering. He didn't see anything, only shadows twisted, by broken metal and firelight. What kind of danger? He whispered. She didn't answer. A low metallic snarl drifted through the air. Aiden shifted his stance, adjusting his grip on her. His free hand hovered near the old plasma pistol strapped to his thigh. We're not stopping, he said under his breath. Whatever's out there, they're not getting you. Seraph pressed closer against him. He could feel the tension, radiating from her small body, the fear, the exhaustion, but beneath it something stronger. Resolve. They moved faster now, every step jarring, every breath ragged. Tell me about your home, he said suddenly, desperate to keep her awake. Keep talking to me, Seraph, please. She hesitated, then sent a flicker of memory into his mind. Images of golden towers, vast fields of shimmering blue grass, skies filled with silver-winged creatures. It was beautiful, and it hurt to see, knowing how far from home she was now. That's incredible, Aiden whispered. We're gonna get you back there one day, I promise. Another snarl echoed, closer this time. His hand closed around the pistol's grip. The ground trembled beneath them, barely noticeable but enough. Something heavy, something hunting, moved among the wreckage. Aiden pushed faster, heart slamming against his ribs. Seraph's breathing grew shallower, her head lolling against his shoulder. No, stay with me, he urged. Seraph, stay awake, talk to me. Afraid, she admitted, the word a fragile echo. I'm scared too, he said honestly. But we're together, yeah? That counts for something. He dared a glance behind them. Shadows shifted, wrong, unnatural. His throat tightened, almost there. Just a few more steps. A piece of wreckage shifted ahead, blocking the path to the pods. Aiden cursed under his breath. He knelt, gently laying Seraph down against a slab of scorched metal. Stay right here, he said. I'll clear it, just for a second, okay? Her hand reached for him, trembling, catching his wrist weakly. Don't leave me. The ache in her voice nearly broke him. I'm not leaving, he said fiercely, squeezing her hand. Never. I'll be right here. Her fingers loosened slowly. Aiden turned and threw himself at the wreckage, pushing, shoving, muscles screaming in protest. He gritted his teeth, throwing all his weight into it. Behind him, Seraph's eyes stayed. Locked on him, wide and luminous even in the ash dark. Finally, with a shriek of tearing metal, the debris shifted enough to clear a narrow path. Aiden stumbled back to her side, scooping her up once more. See? He said, panting. Told you, not leaving. She didn't answer with words, but the way she pressed her forehead lightly against his collarbone said enough. Together, they stumbled through the opening. The pods loomed ahead now, battered but intact. Aiden barely dared to hope until the largest shadow yet detached itself from the wreckage, stepping into their path. He froze. The creature was massive, half machine, half beast, stitched together with scavenged tech and raw muscle. Its eyes glowed a sickly green. Aiden tightened his hold on Seraph, slowly setting her down behind a piece of debris. You stay down, he whispered. No matter what happens. She tried to protest, but he touched her cheek, gentle. Trust me, just this once. Seraph's fingers brushed his hand, lingering, trembling. Then she let him go. Aiden rose to his feet, drawing the pistol with a slow, steady motion. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. But when he looked at her, when he saw the way she watched him, believing in him despite everything, he found something steadier inside himself. He stepped forward, putting himself between her and the monster. Whatever happened next, he would not let her fall, not while he still stood. The creature snarled, low and guttural, its cybernetic limbs twitching in the dark. Aiden's hand tightened around the plasma pistol, his thumb grazing the oars trigger. But he didn't fire, not yet. He couldn't risk it. The creature's eyes fixed on him, glowing green like sickly stars. Its claws clicked against the ground, sharp and hungry. Every step it took seemed to shake the earth beneath his feet. He felt Seraph's presence behind him, fragile but steady. She was watching, waiting for something, waiting for him. He could feel her thoughts intertwining with his, soft but urgent. You're afraid, she whispered, the words curling in his mind. He didn't answer immediately, his gaze still locked on the creature, which was slowly circling him, testing for weaknesses. The beast's voice echoed in his mind, a deep, echoing growl that rattled his thoughts. You won't make it off this rock, human, it hissed. She's mine. Aiden's heart thudded in his chest, but he didn't flinch. The creature's words stung, not because they were true, but because they preyed on something deep inside him. He hadn't known Seraph long, but he already felt something for her, something beyond the drive to survive. I'm not going anywhere, he said, his voice calm despite the fear gnawing at him. And neither is she. He took a slow, deliberate step forward, his body tense with every move. The pistol glinted in his hand, but he knew better than to rely on weapons alone. This thing was something else, something dangerous. But more than that, it was hungry. Hungry for more than just physical domination. It wanted control. Don't let it touch you, Seraph's voice warned softly, a plea wrapped in urgency. Her fear was sharp, a pulse in his chest that he couldn't ignore. Aiden glanced over his shoulder, just for a second. Stay back, he whispered. The words meant only for her. Trust me. He knew she did, in some way. But the way she stared at him from behind the debris, her silver eyes wide, her breath shallow, he could see her thoughts dancing on the edge of his own mind. She wasn't just afraid for herself, she was afraid for him. The creature lunged, suddenly its metal limbs clanking and its claws swiping in the air. Aiden dodged instinctively, barely escaping the snap of the creature's jaws. It was fast, too fast. "You can't protect her forever, human," the creature roared, its voice thick with hate. "I will tear you apart, and then I'll claim her." Aiden's pulse quickened. He glanced around, his mind racing for options. The pods were too far, and the creature was relentless. But then something flickered in the corner of his vision. It was Seraph. She had moved from behind the cover, stepping out into the open, her wings twitching as if remembering their lost strength. Her hand was outstretched toward the beast, and her voice, soft and soothing, filled the air. "Leave him alone." Her thoughts echoed, sharp but clear. The creature froze. For a moment, there was only silence. Aiden's breath hitched as he watched Seraph. There was power in her, something he hadn't seen before. She wasn't just afraid, she was commanding. The creature snarled, stepping back as if uncertain. It growled again, low and menacing, but its posture had changed. Now it was more cautious. "Why do you protect him?" The creature's voice burrowed into Aiden's mind, more insistent now, more desperate. "He is weak. He will only bring you pain." Seraph's eyes burned brighter, the silver in them flaring. She took another step, forward, her voice low and firm. "Because he is the one who will not leave me behind." The words hit Aiden harder than he expected. He clenched his jaw, trying to steady himself. He wasn't just standing for her anymore, he was standing with her. And for the first time since this nightmare began, he understood. She wasn't some fragile alien to be protected. She was a force. A force he wanted beside him, fighting alongside him. The creature shifted again, the tension in the air thick as storm clouds. It seemed to be considering Seraph's words. Its stance faltered. "Not like this," the creature muttered. "More to itself than to them. You are not like the others." Aiden didn't wait for it to finish. He lunged forward, plasma pistol raised, firing with precision. The blast hit the creature square in the chest, a brilliant flash of light and heat. It stumbled back, howling in rage and pain. For a moment, the world stood still, and then, with a final scream, the creature collapsed, its body sparking and crackling as the energy from Aiden's shot coursed through its circuits. It lay motionless on the ground, its unnatural glow dimming. Aiden stood, his breathing ragged, his body trembling with adrenaline. His heart still pounded in his chest as he turned back to Seraph. She was still standing there, a quiet calm in her posture. Her wings were slightly spread, though damaged, like the remnants of a forgotten grace. The fear had faded from her eyes, replaced by something deeper. "You—" Aiden started, but his words caught in his throat. He wasn't sure what to say. He wasn't sure what this was between them. But he knew this. She had protected him. And in doing so, she had given him a strength he didn't know he had. "I told you I wouldn't leave you behind," he said softly, his voice raw with emotion. "And you didn't leave me." Seraph smiled then, faint but real. It was a smile, full of understanding, of shared strength. They had both been through something terrible, and yet here they were, standing together. For a long moment neither of them spoke. The wreckage of the Starliner groaned behind them, but the creature was gone, and for now, the danger had passed. But Aiden knew it wouldn't be the last. Whatever lay ahead, it wasn't over. Still, in that moment, with Seraph standing beside him, he felt something shift in his chest, something hopeful. Maybe they could survive this. Aiden didn't know how much time had passed since the creature had fallen. He hadn't even realized he was holding his breath, until it rushed out in a shaky exhale. They were alone now, standing amidst the wreckage of the Starliner, the broken ground beneath them littered with the remains of their ship and the shattered dreams of hundreds who'd once called it home. Seraph didn't move for a long while. Her eyes still wide, still shimmering with that silver light, fixed on him, but she didn't speak. The silence between them stretched, heavy and uncertain. Aiden shifted on his feet, wiping the sweat from his brow. he'd just faced down. Something terrifying. And yet it wasn't the creature that had him shaken now. It was the stillness, the weight of the moment, between him and the woman who had trusted him enough to stand by him, to fight with him. Aiden opened his mouth, but no words came. Instead, his fingers brushed over the plasma pistol at his side. It felt almost like an old weight, unnecessary now. "Are we safe?" Seraph's voice was soft, breaking the silence like a whisper of wind. Her words caught in the tension of the air between them, but there was a deep sadness in her tone, like she was asking more than just about safety. She was asking about them, this fragile, inexplicable bond between them. Aiden met her gaze, his chest tightening. "Not yet, but we will be." She nodded, but something in the way her eyes searched his face told him she wasn't convinced. Her expression softened, but the hesitation lingered, a quiet question that she wasn't sure how to ask. "I don't belong here," Seraph said, the words coming out almost in a whisper, like she wasn't sure whether to say them aloud. "I'm not like you. I don't fit in this world, this place." Her voice trailed off, and she looked down at the dust beneath her feet, her wings twitching lightly, as if remembering the freedom of flight she'd once known. Aiden's heart ached. At the sight, he reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. She flinched slightly but didn't pull away. He could feel the weight of her words, the sorrow in her chest, the sense of displacement she carried like a second skin. "You don't have to fit in here," Aiden said quietly, his hand resting just a breath away from her cheek, his fingers curling slightly. "I don't want you to. You don't have to become anyone else. Just be with me, that's all I need." Her eyes flickered to his, wide and uncertain, like she was trying to understand the depth of what he was saying. There was a vulnerability in her gaze, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was something more curious. "I don't understand." Her voice trembled slightly. I've never felt this way. For anyone." Aiden swallowed hard, his throat dry. He had to fight the urge to reach for her, to pull her into him, to promise her everything. The rawness of what they were experiencing together felt too big, too new. But the way she was looking at him, the way her words wrapped around his heart, made him wonder if maybe this was something he'd never seen coming, something that felt too real to deny. "I don't understand it either," he said. His voice was a whisper, as if the words were fragile, but I can't imagine it being anyone else. She blinked at him, her expression unreadable for a moment before she took a step forward. Her hands reached out, hesitant at first, but then certain. She took his face in her hands, her thumbs brushing lightly against his skin. The contact was soft but so steady. In that moment, Aiden's heart skipped. The weight of the world seemed to vanish, replaced by a single steady beat. Her touch grounded him, and the warmth of her palms against his skin sent a rush of emotion through him. He could feel the pulse of her heart, the sincerity in her touch. She was here, with him. He could feel her thoughts, flickering like a soft flame. "You're here with me too." "I'm here," he said quietly, echoing her thoughts, his voice full of raw honesty. For a long moment, neither of them moved. It was the kind of silence that was heavy with meaning, with understanding. They didn't need words anymore. Their hearts were speaking the language of something older, something that needed no translation. Then, out of nowhere, the distant sound of a crash echoed through the desolate air, pulling them back into reality. The silence was shattered, replaced by the sound of the ship groaning, as if the wreckage was settling, crumbling further under the weight of their failed escape. Aiden's pulse spiked again, the adrenaline kicking back in. He pulled away from Seraph, though reluctantly, his mind snapping back to the dangers still out there. "We need to move, there could be more of them." Seraph nodded, but as she turned to follow him, her hand brushed against his. It was a simple thing, a fleeting touch, but it felt like everything. Her fingers curled around his for just a second. No words needed. She was with him. They were in this together. "We'll make it," Aiden said, his voice a quiet promise. "Whatever it takes, I won't let you go." She looked up at him, the silvery light in her eyes reflecting the moon's. Above, and for the first time since they'd met, Aiden saw something more than the alien woman who had crash-landed on his world. He saw a companion, a partner. And in her eyes he saw something that made him believe they could survive this. For the first time since this nightmare began, Aiden allowed himself to believe they would. The ground trembled beneath them, a low, warning hum as the wreckage of the Starliner continued to shift and groan. Aiden didn't need to look around to know they were being watched. There was something else out there waiting, hidden in the shadows of the ruined landscape. The creatures, the ones they had barely escaped, were still hunting. But the real danger wasn't just from them. It was from the distance between Aiden and Seraph, the space that had opened up between them the moment they had realized what was at stake. The moment they understood that survival didn't just mean escaping a broken planet. It meant learning to live with the truth of what they felt. They walked in silence, but the air between them was charged, heavy with unspoken words. Their hands brushed together every now and then, and each time it felt like something shifted in the world around them. The faintest smile pulled at the corner of Seraph's lips when their fingers touched again. She didn't pull away, and neither did he. "I don't know where we're going," Seraph said quietly, her voice uncertain, almost shy. She wasn't looking at him. Her gaze was on the ground ahead, her mind wrapped up in thoughts he couldn't quite follow. "That's okay," Aiden replied, his voice warm. "Neither do I." There was something comforting about it, the truth in his words. They didn't have to have the answers. Not right now, but even as they continued walking, the weight of their situation pressed on them, pulling them both in different directions. Aiden's mind drifted to their ship, what was left of it, and to the others who hadn't made it off the planet. He thought of the family he'd left behind, of the ones who'd been taken by the chaos. The fear and grief were always there, just beneath the surface, like a shadow that never quite left. Seraph's hand brushed his arm, pulling him out of his thoughts. "You're thinking about them, aren't you?" Her voice was soft, but there was understanding in it. No judgment, just a simple, shared reality. Aiden paused, glancing down at her. Her face was calm, but he saw the quiet sorrow in her eyes, the burden of loss. She was here with him, but he could tell she, too, was carrying the weight of 1,000 unspoken fears. The same weight, in a way, but hers was a different kind of loss, something alien to him, something he couldn't yet fully grasp. "I can't stop thinking about them," he admitted. "The people we left behind, I wish I could have done more." "I know," Seraph said, her voice trembling just slightly. "I feel it too." He looked at her then, really looked at her. In the dim light of the shattered sky, her silver eyes reflected the stars above. So bright, so full of life, despite everything that had happened, despite everything she had lost. "Thank you," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "for everything." Seraph looked up at him, her gaze meeting his with an intensity that stole his breath. For a moment, there was only silence. She stepped closer, and without a word she reached for his hand. It was a simple gesture, but it spoke volumes. They didn't need more words. They knew what the other meant. "I don't know what's ahead of us," Seraph said, her voice barely above a whisper. "But I know I don't want to face it alone." Aiden's heart clenched. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was something more, something deeper, something terrifying in its beauty. It was the recognition of something fragile yet unbreakable. A bond that had formed between them in the darkest of circumstances. "I won't let you face it alone," Aiden said, his voice steady, filled with a resolve that burned in his chest. "Not now. Not ever." The quiet between them stretched, but this time it wasn't uncomfortable. It was filled with understanding, a mutual promise that neither of them could put into words. They continued walking side by side, the sound of their footsteps steady against the broken ground. The moonlight above them bathed the landscape in an eerie glow, but for a moment it felt peaceful, like the storm inside them had calmed, if only for a brief time. They didn't know what the future would bring. They didn't know if they'd find another ship or make it off this dying planet. But they knew this. They had each other, and that was enough. As they walked through the ruins of the broken world, Seraph's hand remained in his, her presence, beside him like a constant anchor. And for the first time in a long time, Aiden allowed himself to believe in the possibility of something beyond the chaos, beyond the wreckage. Together, they could face whatever came next. If this story moved, you share it with someone who loves powerful tales from distant worlds. Don't forget to like and let us know in the comments. What would you have done?